Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day to die hard, and welcome to the madness that is the Charlie Marx Show. I'm Charlie Marx, but I might be Fred Astaire on the dance floor. Firstly, may I wish you all a very happy new year, full of love, peace, and subscriptions to the Charlie Marx Show. Speaking of which, a quick reminder to please like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and follow the Charlie Marx Show. Also, please share, as sharing is daring. You can also leave me a comment, or why not join the show by telling me what's bugging you in the world with the Devil's Advocate. I can also be spied upon by you visiting www.charliemarx.co.uk. So, here we are in the future, 2025. I can recall sitting in my friend Colin's room listening to Now That's What I Call Music 3 on cassette, discussing how futuristic the world would be in the year 2000. Well, not much to be fair, except for the government and local council screwing people and electric cars that are only useful if you have a Scalextrics track. And now, in 2025, we see that all the flying cars Colin and I discussed are nowhere to be seen. Still, at least the government and local councils have gotten... oh well, there's always 2099. Coming up on tonight's show, we have all the latest fake news from around the world and beyond from the CM Newsroom, Storytime with Sir Percival Homosexual reading a classic, and of course, moans and groans and things that go irk in the night with the Devil's Advocate. There are also some new additions to keep you all laughing all the way to the subscribe button. Of course, you can still write in about the old things, and they will be coming back as well. But now, before all the insanity which is the Charlie Marx Show, a new section of the show, Review of the Week. This week's Review of the Week is a book review. This is a book. It's a rather old-fashioned way of disappearing into a fantasy world or even learning something. Now, in order to obtain one of these book items, one must either purchase it from a bookshop or join a very isolated community called a library. The pros of a book are that it will never run out of battery or crash. But the cons are that you can't really swipe it, and there is only one story or topic in it. Join me next time for another review of the week. Now we go live to a new section of the show where we get to the future now with Manfred the Psychic.
Hello and good evening from beyond. My name is Manfred the Psychic, and together with my spirit guide, Bob, I shall be communicating with your dear departed loved ones and perhaps someone you didn't quite like. Bob is now channeling the spirits towards me, and like Argos, they will each have to take a ticket and have to wait until they are called. Okay, I am picking up James or Jim or a Jack or a Philip or a Simon. He is showing me two fingers, and I'm getting the sense that he was wounded in either a war or whilst doing some DIY. He was known by the way he would breathe. I'm sure someone in the audience can pick up on this. Yes, his breathing is very... and he's doing this over and over again. He's telling me that he is... he used to either drive a car or not. Yes, I'm seeing a particular woman in his life who also has passed. Wind on several occasions. This person died by closing their eyes and stopping breathing, which makes me almost certain that they passed to the other side. And they were sad that they were... Yes, they were very sad because they were nearly at the end of season 10 of The Walking Dead. This person has a message for someone out there, and this message is, yes, thank you, Bob. This message is saying that the person this message is for should like, subscribe, share, and send money to the Charlie Marx Show. Join me next time when I shall be in conversation with the dead. This has been me, Manfred the Psychic, and my spirit guide, Bob.
I can only say that Charlie Marx is a shite for sore eyes, which is why you should subscribe to the Charlie Marx Show, or I'll kick your arse. Welcome back to the Charlie Marx Show, my pretties. Lots more to come, but first I have some exciting news. Our new competition for 2025 is here, and you could win this fabulous album, Vladdy Putin. Vlad, you made it. It has such classic tracks as Putting All My Love Into You, Rushing Around, Fixing the Elections, Playing My Trump Card, and The Green Green Grass of Everyone Else's Country, Kremlin Up Your Window, and Tanks for the Memories. To win this fabulous album, all you have to do is answer this simple question and leave your answer in the comments below. Moses took the Israelite slaves out of Egypt. Name them. Good luck, fellow followers. And now time for all the latest fake news from around the world and beyond with CM News. Good evening and welcome to CM News with me, Virginia Woolf. Our top story this evening. Mrs. Jones, a farmer's wife, was sentenced today at the Old Bailey on 3 consecutive counts of murder. Mrs. Jones was arrested at the scene of the crime last March for cutting off the tails of 3 visually impaired mice. Her defense argued that Mrs. Jones, 84, was provoked by the 3 blind mice, but this line of defense failed to convince the jury. A spectator at the trial told a reporter from CM News that he had never did see such a thing in his life. In the swimming, Bertie Bamforth was suspended from the competition today pending an inquiry. The silver medalist was caught on camera during the mixed breaststroke 49-kilometre race, stroking one too many breasts. The price of gas is to rise again this month, which has surprised everyone, seeing as the amount of hot air that is coming out of 10 Downing Street. And finally, George and Georgina, the oldest turtles in the world, gave birth to a male tortoise. George, 176, said that he thought he and his wife Georgina, 173, were past all that hankery-pankery, but are looking forward to claiming family allowance. The baby tortoise, Georgie, was shy in front of the world's press, but Mother Georgina reassured them that he would be fine when he came out of his shell. And that was the latest headlines. We now go live to London, where Prime Minister Sir Daniel Diabolical has an announcement. This is Virginia Woolf for CM News. Good night.
Hello, this is Prime Minister Danny Diabolical with a message to you people out there. In the highly unlikely event that another virus should try and come into our patch, and I'm not there to smash his bloody head in because I'm out dealing with some nonce who thinks they're hard, then these are some things my boys in government want you to do. Now this is bloody unlikely to happen, because nothing gets past me. I mean nothing. But if Trumpy or Putin decide to fire one of their mamby-pamby rockets full of viruses and stuff, it's vital you should know that the old SP is. First thing is, get yourself in Aldi and all the other shops and buy up as much bog roll as you can. Life can only go on with a clean arse. You must also buy up all the soaps and biscuits and tea, leaving nothing for the poor people. This way, we can bump off all the old codgers and have more money for the likes of me. Now, I know that as soon as you weaklings hear the word virus, you're going to want to take the advice from Trumpy and buy disinfectant to inject yourself. But, and I cannot stress this enough, I repeat, do not buy cheap disinfectant, because I don't want other countries thinking we can't afford name brands. It's a bloody embarrassment, and I won't bloody have it. If my boys tell you to isolate, then you're going to isolate, right? So, make sure you got a subscription to Netflix. For birds isolating, make sure you have all the cleaning products you need, because I won't stand for a dirty house. And you ain't going to spend all day in a bloody dressing gown. If you've got a dog, you will now have time to teach it some new tricks, but not if it's an old dog. Also, I will not have anyone driving on the roads unless it's for essentials, like medicines, food, and that broken PlayStation you saw in Gumtree. My boys will suggest that you stay off work and be furloughed, but I don't know what furlough is, and to be honest, it sounds bent to me, so none of that. For ladies of the night, keep your receipts or you won't get your dosh. I know it's a pain in the old chewing gum, but there are gonna be queues every bloody where, so make sure you got your baseball bat at the ready for any Phil and Hollies that are. Kids will have to remain in their rooms with their faces glued to a screen, only coming out to feed their horrible little faces. So, no change there then. My boys have the cartel for PPE. So, you need something, you just ask for Danny. So there you have it, my old Chinas. A simple guide for simple people. This is Prime Minister Danny Diabolical saying, stay safe, or I'll bust you.
And more from the CM Newsroom next time. But now, my special guest. My guest this evening is a private investigator who solved one of the greatest crimes to date. Ladies and gentlemen, live via satellite from his office, private investigator Hugh Dunnit. Welcome to the show, Hugh. Now, I'm not easily fooled by things, but I certainly don't have your sleuth-solving mind, so how do you go about starting to solve a crime?
Well, firstly, every crime, no matter how careful the perpetrator has been at the crime scene, every crime is criminal.
That's probably true. So, the crime scene, is this where you start?
Most certainly. I start looking for clues right away, sometimes even before the crime has been committed. As a special private investigator, I pick up on things that most other detectives miss, like during my investigation of the moon landings of '69, I was the one who found not a single trace of cheese on the exterior of the Apollo spacecraft.
Cheese? Are you saying that you believe the moon is made of... What other clues have you picked up on through the years?
Well, I know that Dolly Parton saw the murder of Garth Brooks, as there was no indentations on her bed, so I knew she must have slept on her back.
Apparently none. Let's move on to the case which made you the famous detective you are today.
Ah, the case of the bleeding obvious. Now that takes me back.
It only happened last week.
Yes, takes me back to last week. It was on a quieter spell in my work schedule, and I was relaxing in front of the box. I got bored of looking at a box and switched on the television. There she was before me, Jessica Fletcher. I watched with interest, but noticed that something was not right, and my detective instincts kicked in like an instinct kicking in. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and decided to go to bed. But I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning, not knowing what it was that didn't quite add up. The following day I was ironing my notebook and switched the television on. There she was, Jessica Fletcher in Murder, She Wrote case, and suddenly it all fell into place. But I needed more evidence. I needed more evidence to make an arrest. Or if it came to court, she could walk out on a technicality.
She? Who? What are you talking about?
I told you I'm getting to it. I decided my next port of call would be to a snitch I knew who worked in HMV. He provided me with a complete box set of Murder, She Wrote, and I got to use a staff discount. I took the box set home and watched every episode, and I was right. I then filed my report and sent it into my local police station.
What? What you worked out? Right.
Quite impatient, aren't you? You see, there only ever seemed to be a murder when she was either there, present at the time, or she knew someone who knew the victim. So, using my detective brain, I deduced that Jessica Fletcher was indeed the culprits.
Well, that's all we have time for, ladies and gentlemen. Private Investigator Hugh Dunnit. Join me next time for another special guest. But now it's time to slip into your pyjamas, get your cosy blanket, throw another weasel in the fire, and curl up on the sofa with a nice glass of wine as Sir Percival Homosexual reads this week's tale, Even Other Planets Have Problems, in Storytime.
Hello, children, and I hope you had a lovely Christmas. But let's not hear any more about Christmas until next September. Are you sitting comfortably, or at least as comfortable as you can be after putting on so much weight over the festivities? You have fat little... Then we'll begin. Far away in a galaxy, billions of miles from the nearest McDonald's, there is a small planet called Zuni. It was such a small planet that it only had 6 inhabitants, but for many a long year they were all happy and got on with each other just fine. Employment was on the rise, and soon it was thought they would all have jobs. There was even a rumour that a cafe and a cinema were going to be built, but the residents of planet Zuni didn't bother to get their hopes up, especially after that time they were promised a library. They did have a convenience store, but it had no doors, so it was just called a store. Life couldn't have been better on this little planet in the outer galaxy. Of course, this was until Roger and his wife Sandra Rosenbaum arrived. Roger was once a high-flying office manager on the planet Earth, but due to a company takeover, the only way he could retain his job would be to move to one of the company's other offices in Middlesbrough, Glasgow, or the planet Zuni. Sandra was not happy at having to relocate to another planet, so far away from her friends and family, and her favourite nail salon. But Roger convinced her that it was only a short drive from Zuni to Earth, and if she left before 8 a.m, she should reach the nail salon 2 minutes past the next millennium. And it was also better than moving to Glasgow. Sandra agreed for peace's sake, and they packed up their belongings and headed off to the planet Zuni. Sandra found it difficult to pack all her possessions, as Roger had been a hoarder of many useless things, and when she approached him with the suggestion that he perhaps lighten the load by chucking away all of his crap, Roger went ballistic and shouted at her, "You will be sorry when you're looking for three slightly broken screws, and I've thrown them away." Sandra said nothing, as she had already put up with broken screws since the start of her marriage. It was Monday afternoon when they arrived on the planet Zuni, and because of the severe jet lag, they decided they would introduce themselves to the neighbours the following day. Unbeknown to the Rosenbaums, the whole community, all 6 of them, had organised a special welcome for them with sandwiches and a small finger buffet and a Kajagoogoo tribute act. So when Roger and Sandra didn't leave their house, this was, according to the neighbours, not very neighbourly. The president of the planet Zuni decided unanimously that the residents would not fall out with the new arrivals. But the residents were not happy about being snubbed. Of course, the president could see that his subjects were not best pleased, so he organised, through his own expense, a barbecue to try and lighten the situation. But all this did was cause further animosity when Roger and Sandra failed to check their mail the following day and didn't see the invitation. Before long, the people of the planet Zuni, all 6 of them, declared war on the Rosenbaums, and the president was forced to call out the army, which consisted of Mr. and Mrs. Schultz, the pensioners from number 2. Sandra realised something was amiss when she opened the curtains in her kitchen the following morning to see the long barrel of a tank facing her. She was understandably upset and called on her husband to see what was going on. Roger was grumpy about being woken up, as he was in the middle of an exotic dream where he was doing his accounts, but he put on his slippers and dressing gown and walked to the door. There he was met by the president, who negotiated a peace treaty with him over tea and toast. But as Roger was about to shake hands with the president, he noticed that the tank in the garden had run over his greenhouse, which caused Roger to grab the tea and toast from the president and proclaim war. It was a very bloody period in Zuni history, seeing the war going on all afternoon. The resident of the planet Zuni panicked at the thought that they would be defeated, so they launched a nuclear strike on the Rosenbaums. But just as luck would have it, the Rosenbaums were out shopping at the time and missed the whole entire event. When they returned from Tesco, they were shocked to see that their front door was the only thing left standing of their house. Roger unlocked the door, and after helping his wife with the shopping into what was once their kitchen, he marched straight over to the president's house and shot him with a gun he'd just bought in Tesco. It was in the reduced section. With the president dead, there was nobody left to lead the assault on the Rosenbaums, and the planet was put onto Code Violet. They'd been promised a red bulb, but this was also something that had failed to materialise. It was now every man for himself. It's important to state that although there were women on planet Zuni, they had just decided to stick to one gender. Fighting broke out in the street, with the original residents throwing old nappies at the Rosenbaums, and the Rosenbaums retaliating by giving the other residents videos of pre-recorded episodes of Doctor Who, knowing that full well that the residents didn't have a VCR. By the following morning, Roger decided he was not going to stay on the planet Zuni 1 minute longer, and placed their front door up for sale. Roger and Sandra returned to Earth, and Roger handed in his notice with the company, saying that he would never work for them if his future depended on it. Ironically, Roger owned the company and would have saved himself a lot of grief if he had just gotten rid of the full-length mirror in his office. Back on the planet Zuni, the residents got back on with their lives and eventually got the McDonald's, the cinema, and the red light bulb. And although they said they wanted peace and harmony, every time there were rumours of new neighbours moving in, they always made sure pensioners Mr. and Mrs. Schultz were on standby.
And Sir Percival will be back next time with another historical tale in Storytime. But now it's time for another roundup of moans and groans and things that go irk in the night with the Devil's Advocate. Tonight on The Devil's Advocate, I have called my moan Take It to the Limit. Because the crux of my moan is time. Now, dear friends, before you go to the little X at the top of the right-hand corner of your screen, I'm not going to go all sci-fi time travel on you. My question to you is, how long are we obliged to say Happy New Year on meeting a friend or family member for the first time in the year? We're only at the very beginning of January, and I'm already fed up saying it, especially to those I couldn't give a toss as whether they had a good year or not. I get the whole thing about hearing the bells when slightly worse for wear and wanting to kiss as many people as possible, as it may be the only chance you get to wet your whistle. But how long do we keep this friendly pretense up? Do we move on like the supermarkets do? We've just celebrated the birth of Jesus, and now the supermarkets have filled the shelves with chocolate eggs. We've welcomed him, and now we're already killing him and resurrecting him. Not to mention that we've not even had the Singleton's nightmare event, Valentine's Day. How about the 15th of June? That's slap bang in the middle of the year, and so any mention of Happy New Year would be redundant. I personally believe that if someone fails to say Happy New Year, then it's either past the moment of wishing it, or the person doesn't want you to have a Happy New Year. Also, just a side note, what the hell happened to the January sales? This used to be the highlight of many a shopper. People would camp out all night in front of a store just to get a few pounds off something, which they didn't want in the first place, actually. Thank you for watching The Charlie Marx Show. And remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, share, and follow me on www.charliemarx.co.uk. So, until next time, if you're not watching The Charlie Marx Show, you won't have a Happy New Year.